everyone. Today we have the Honorable Big Fan. I've mentioned them a bunch of times on my podcast before. Pioneer, I think, in the martial arts space with Aikido, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I think he has an extensive resume. And excuse the expression, I think he's kind of like the Swiss Army knife of martial arts with his extended knowledge. And it's a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you very much, Sewell. I'd really like to thank you for interviewing me and for taking this time to find out more about the type of work I do and what I do in the martial arts and Aikido specifically, and then all the cross training as well.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. So, for those who may not be familiar, because I know you operate in a few different spaces, do you want to just talk about your background a little bit and what you've been working on, and then we can kind of progress from there?
Absolutely. Well, I've been doing Aikido for 54 years. I started in 1970, and almost the whole time I've always done some cross training. As a teenager, I did a couple of years of Taekwondo. I did Kendo and Iliado as well. I even did a little bit of Kyudo, Japanese Zen archery.
Wow.
I got involved also a little bit in Western boxing, and a little bit of Muay Thai. And then I found Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in, it was in 1994.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Absolutely fell in love with it. And so since then, I had been studying often formally and informally during the whole time, but sometimes I would be going to a jiu-jitsu academy, and other times I would just be working it on my own with my students.
Wow.
Until finally, after about 10 years, I got a black belt through the Gracie Baja group.
Wow.
And my sons, both of them are also Gracie Baja black belts.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Got their black belt from they were both living in Austin, Texas, and they were in a BJJ academy down there, Gracie Baja, with Professor Dungy, as he's known. And
awesome.
Anyway, I was really delighted to I've tried to get them involved for years and years in the martial arts, and they would always tell me, Dad, I'm not a fighter, I'm really a lover, and I'm not in martial arts. And then all of a sudden, well, they did Aikido for a long time, and then all of a sudden they went to college and at the UT, and then all of a sudden they were interested in jiu-jitsu. So I was delighted. Anyway.
Awesome.
So they both have their academies. So yeah, I've been, but mostly Aikido. That is really my thing. That's what I do, and I believe that when Sensei first started Aikido, he only took students who were hardcore martial artists. They were already experts in other martial arts. They knew how to defend themselves, and they knew how to deal with true adversity. And so when they came to Aikido, it was sort of like a supplemental training to them, or icing on the cake. It was perhaps a spiritual conclusion or a philosophical conclusion, and it answered internal questions that they had just about life and existence, and how their martial tempering fitted into that. So it's been my effort through cross training to fill in the background. My true love is Aikido. And through the classical training, sometimes it's hard to connect all the dots to see how the practical application goes. Plus, people, when they get into confrontations, it happens differently now than before.
Right.
And arts have to adjust accordingly. And that's where cross-training also can help a lot to keep something practical and martially relevant. Although 90% of the time, I would say that I'm doing the classical Aikido.
Right. That is phenomenal. Yeah, you've touched on a few things I wanted to really dive into, but please go on. This is great.
Yeah, so in let's see, I started my school here in 1981.
Okay.
And so we've been open now almost for 45 years.
Wow.
And, through all the trials and tribulations of becoming a professional Aikido instructor, this is all I do. And this is all I have done for the last 45 years. So, it's, it, it, it's not really it's a trade-off. I was trained in college as an accountant
Okay.
and business administration, but I soon realized after graduating that I wanted to do more than subsidize my dojo with a daytime job. I just wanted to jump into it fully.
Okay.
And that's what I've been doing for better or worse all these years and have been very fortunate.
That is phenomenal. So do you think that background in I guess business administration and accounting, did that help kind of, did that help sort of maintain the dojo from the business side? Were those skills, do you think, applicable from school?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's still a struggle at times to keep a dojo viable in these times.
Right.
Just purchased our own building uh, about now it's been about 6 years.
Wow, congrats.
And,
That's awesome.
so we're going to be here hopefully for a while, maybe after I'm gone as well. I hope. My hope is that I'm building something that's bigger than me.
That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. If you don't mind, I kind of wanted to just continue that flow.
Sure.
And then
Yeah,
obviously you mentioned Aikido. I guess the next question is when you found Aikido, I assume was that in New York Aikikai? Was that where you started your Aikido training, or did you start because I know you spent time with Chiba Sensei, is that correct?
that's true.
Okay.
I started off with Yamada Sensei,
Okay.
the New York Aikikai, 20 minutes from my house in Greenwich Village. That's where I grew up.
Wow.
And I was 12 years old when I met Yamada Sensei. And I think had it been anybody else, I would not have started Aikido. I was
Mm,
a troubled young teenager, and Yamada Sensei showed the type of kindness and acceptance that I needed to really get riveted into the art. And then when I saw the art and I saw people, actually it was a smooth forward roll that impressed me the most. I was watching Yamada Sensei do a forward roll,
wow.
and all I could hear was his hakama touching the mat. And I thought, wow, I just got to do it. And that was it for me. My mom bought me a gi and I got on the mat. Uh, dues were $13 a month for a junior member at that time. Of course, that was, you know, I don't know what, 60 bucks a month today, but
Right.
less, it was reasonable. And I had found a place, a haven for myself that really, a whole community that was incredible.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
What was the New York Aikikai like as you, I guess, progressed? Because how long were you there? So you must have seen it through a few different eras, right? From a sort of a junior, like a teenager's eyes, and possibly on through adulthood or junior adulthood, right?
Yes, I saw the New York Aikikai at a time when really society was ripe for Aikido.
Hmm.
Was you know, it was a turbulent time, a time when the Vietnam War was going on. Richard Nixon was in office. There was lots of rioting and demonstrating in the street. There was women's liberation happening, gay liberation, Black Power movement, you name it, and it was happening. And right there in New York City, it was really fertile ground for this. And then also the Maharaji came over from India and was introducing meditation and yoga, and the Beatles were
Hmm.
on the scene. And, you know, people were experimenting with drugs and mind expansion and all this kind of stuff. So the whole idea, it was just so ripe for Aikido at
Right.
that time. And it seemed like the New York Aikikai was a microcosm of New York City at that time, which was just truly a melting pot of all kinds of cultures.
Right.
And we got to work it out right on the mat there. And it was really, really beautiful. A beautiful time, a vibrant time, a time when so much possibility and so much change. The New York Aikikai was as exciting as the times were.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Wow. So I guess when you were around throughout your years there, you would have trained with Yamada Sensei and Sagano. Was Sagano Sensei there then? I'm not sure.
He
Or he
wasn't there yet. I think
okay,
he,
yeah,
yeah, I think he was either still in Europe or Australia.
right.
But during that time, Sugano Sensei wasn't there. And Yamada Sensei was a very energetic instructor. He would go up and down the mat working with everybody. And he would just go from one couple to the other. And this was in the first few years that I was training. Sometimes he'd grab a hold of me and work out with me for about 20 minutes within his class. And it was extreme. I remember getting extremely exhausted because it was very hard to throw him. Of course, he was gauging everything, and giving me just the right resistance that he thought I needed. And so that was amazing to practice like that with him. And his students were all, a lot of them were very good. It was really an amazing group of people to train with. There was in the afternoon classes, I used to cut my math class to, because I couldn't do math. I was always failing math. And I was sitting in the classroom failing math, and I was understanding that there was a 1 o'clock class at the dojo.
Mm,
So I either fail math and sit in the classroom, or I could go to the dojo and fail math. So I decided I'd go to the dojo if I'm going to fail it anyway, because it wasn't making sense to me.
right.
And, uh, and I just cut class all the time and go to the dojo. Somehow I managed to graduate anyway. But I'd go in the afternoon, and there were a lot of performing artists that would come in the afternoon, and they did Aikido for, they wanted stage presence, and they wanted to get in touch with their core power, their energy. They wanted to put a flow into their artistic expression.
Right.
And for me to be around people like that, artists and photographers and dancers and actors and poets and all kinds of folks who are with alternative lifestyles, and it was just really a fascinating group. The morning class was run by Lukman Hakim Sensei. He
Ah,
passed away a few years ago. And most of the group at that time, it was the Nation of Islam that would practice in the morning, the Elijah.
oh, wow. Okay. Got
And,
you.
and they were sort of into strict discipline, hard work, martial effectiveness, and cleanliness. That's what I remember. Because you showed up with a dirty gi, it was bad for you. You'd get thrown really hard, and then you'd get sent off the mat. So I knew my gi had to be clean, and I had to be respectful. And it was a really hard practice. At the time I was going to an all black high school, and I was the only white guy in there. And I just said, gee, these guys are all so tough. I don't know if I can get as tough as they are. So I thought that if I went to the morning class, that the guys in the morning class seemed like the same guys I go to school with. So I said, well, maybe a little bit will rub off on me, I just work out with these guys. Some were so strong, the guys I worked out with in the morning, that they could just pick me up by my collar
Wow.
and me up over their hip and just throw me. And it was always really clean. So I learned how to break fall and take pretty good ukemi. And as long as I was cool, and because I was a bit of a wise guy, and as long as I kept my mouth shut and was respectful and everything, it worked out pretty well. I got a good workout and learned a lot, and actually found some common ground. I think weren't supposed to really like me. These guys, according to the Nation of Islam and all that.
Right, right.
I could tell they did like me, even though nobody was going to say that. And that's all right. And it was, I'd come in the morning and it would be Assalamu alaikum, brother. They wouldn't say that to me, but they'd say that to each other.
To
Then
each
it'd be,
other,
and I'm listening to this. Oh, okay. And I, I, I thought to myself, maybe I should say Salam alaikum, brother, and see what happens. I said, you know what? I want to live. I want to live. So I decided maybe I just better be cool and keep my mouth shut and practice, So that was the morning class. And then in the evening class, it was everybody was there together. And that's usually when Yamada Sensei was there.
Mm.
Occasionally, I'd see Yamada Sensei in the morning if his wife kicked him out, at night, and he'd be in the morning class, So I don't think he liked teaching in the morning so much, but I was always happy to see him whenever he was there, and he taught a great class. So, but he used to teach mostly in the evening.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And occasionally in the afternoons as well. So, but he used to travel a lot.
So
Yeah.
you were around in the heyday with, and Lukman was there then, right? Do I understand that correctly? That was the Lukman crew?
Oh, yeah, Lukman Hakim,
Yeah, right. So, you were around in that era because I don't know if anyone's around because I've always asked about that era because I think
See,
my father
that was
crossed paths with him. Yeah,
What's that?
My father crossed paths with him at
Oh,
some point. I just don't
yeah.
know when, and it would have been later in the timeline when he jumped in Aikido, but he had met him before.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Right. I think in the 80s he went to Morocco.
Right.
Lukman.
Yeah. And I recall him visiting, was it when I think Doshu came in 20, don't quote me on this, maybe like 2010, 2005 or something. There's
Gosh,
one year Doshu came.
Doshu came a couple of times. I remember, I think it was in the 80s.
Right.
Well, no, even earlier. Gosh,
Yeah. And during my era, he popped up in
I think
my time in Aikido.
Yeah, I think one of the times he came was in the 80s, and I was already in Seattle by that time. So
Okay.
yeah.
Ooh. Wow. Okay. So yeah, the New York Times. So then at what point, if you don't mind me asking, at what point did you find, I guess we can call it Birinkai, which point did you find Chiba Sensei? How did that that training sort of start, or did you move, or how did you connect with Chiba Sensei?
Well, one of the times when I cut class and I came in, Chiba Sensei happened to be visiting New York, and he came out to teach the class.
Okay.
And as I saw him walking around in the dojo, I said, "Oh my God, this guy!"
That's it, right?
Class. I can't wait, And I was like, 15 years old or so, and I was like a first kyu, so I was still wearing a white belt. And a lot of the folks who were studying, especially the artistic types back in those days, the actors and intellectuals, Aikido appealed to them on an intellectual level. They weren't really in their bodies.
Right.
And here you got a guy like Chiba Sensei, but somehow they got to be Shodans and Nidans and stuff. And here you have Chiba Sensei coming in, and he was bouncing these guys around like crazy, and they were getting dinged up pretty bad, And my ukemi was okay at the time, but I knew that he wasn't going to call on me because I was only a white belt and I was, a kid. And I couldn't stand the thought of him leaving the dojo without me at least having a chance to feel what his technique was like.
Right.
So I went up to him and I said, "Throw me." And I grabbed hold of his wrist. And he did this kokyu nage like this, where he threw me over his head.
Shoulders, yeah.
And I flew. And I said, "Wow." And then I got up again and he did a Nikyo on me from hell. And I just went, oh, I screamed. And he laughed so hard. He thought that was good. And then he kept using me for uke in the class.
Nice.
It was great. And I was in love. I said, this guy is incredible. And he came back a few other times, and I remember attacking him in a freestyle. And I just loved the way he moved. And he liked to engage with people. He didn't always have good things to say. He was always critical, and he was a bit of a smart ass sometimes when he would talk, Like he would say things, make the snide jokes about your Aikido. And but I kind of dug him, because he'd get into it with you,
Right,
and
right.
he'd interact. So finally, I must have been about 17 years old. I said, I'm coming to England and I'm going to study with you. And he said, don't come to England. He says, because I'm moving to Japan. I'm going to be the secretary of the International Aikido Federation. My office is going to be in Tokyo. So that's where I'm going to be. I said, all right, I'll see you in Japan. And yeah, a teenager tells you something like that, you go, all right, all right.
Sure, pal.
Then I showed up at his office in Tokyo and he goes, it's you. And I go, yeah, it's me. And so that was how it all started. And it's just,
Wow.
yeah. So I studied with him for a good 16 years because I studied 2 years with him in Japan. And then I was on the West Coast. So I was part of, there was no Birankai. It was just the United States Aikido Federation, the Western region.
Okay, right. Because it was East, I think East and West then,
The East,
right?
Midwest, Western region, and then there was
Okay.
Hawaii.
Okay.
Yeah. So, uh, yeah, so I was part of the Western region for a good 14 years after that as well. So a lot of time with Chiba Sensei, a lot of time with Yamada Sensei, formative years. And it was just right the way it worked out because he was such a, Chiba Sensei was such a taskmaster. I mean, if the boken's coming down and you're not out of the way, it's just your destiny to get hit with it. And so, that might seem kind of hard right now, but he was like a drill sergeant
Right.
and preparing the troops for the worst and not too concerned about all the norms and mores of society. He wanted to get the message across one way or another. And I appreciated that about him. I couldn't have handled him in the very beginning.
Right.
The first 8 years, I would have just been broken. I just could not have had. I needed Yamada Sensei's introduction to Aikido and to fall in love with Aikido and the tempering that I got through a very gradual way at the New York Aikikai through Yamada Sensei that really laid the foundation for me to be able to really absorb more severe training. So if it happened the other way around, I don't think it would have happened.
That's interesting. So you got a really strong foundation from your time in Europe with Yamada Sensei, and that kind of enabled you to continue your training with Shiva Sensei.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I guess my next question is, and we'll probably bounce back and work between Aikido. What
Yeah.
led you to begin Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Because I know you've done a lot of martial arts you've mentioned, but if you don't mind, I kind of, what point did you decide that was it? When did you find that, and how did you get into that sort of training?
Well, I was teaching a seminar down in San Luis Obispo about 25 years ago. And one of the owners of the dojo, Tom, said to me, hey, I got these jiu-jitsu videotapes. When you go back to your room tonight, maybe you should take a look at them. I think they're really good. It's really some outstanding stuff. And I'm going, oh, okay. And I take these jujitsu tapes and I go, oh God, I got to sit down and look at this because people are always laying tapes on me, things I should read, things that I should look at and all that. And I get so bored at times, and I was feeling so tired. So I said, oh, but I like my friend Tom, so I'll put at least one of these tapes in just to satisfy, so I can say something about it,
Right.
And so I tried to keep my eyes open and I'm putting the tape in. I'm looking at this and it's the Gracies doing their first video on Aikido and or on Jiu-Jitsu, and they're talking about the Gracie Challenge.
Oh, wow.
All these guys in to fight with them, all these martial artists, and they close the distance, they get in tight, they take the guy down and they just slap him around a little bit and then they finish them off. And time after time with one guy after the other, I'm looking at this and I'm going, wow, this is incredible. This is amazing. And then I saw the tutorials. I stayed up the whole night and watched. All of a sudden I had lots of energy and I I stayed up the whole night watching these tapes. And then I got Tom in the morning and I said, "Hey, Tom, I got to try this stuff on you." And we just worked it a little bit. And ever since then, I was hooked. I love jujitsu. You know, I did a lot of, I did Taekwondo. I hated every minute of it, but I stuck it out because, you know, I just felt I needed to get more rounded. I like boxing a lot too, but I was starting to get hit in the head too much, you
Right.
know. I was having some trouble with my vision. So, yeah, I was in my mid 30s and I said, you know, maybe I should, you know, I think I've learned what I have to learn from boxing. I think I better move on before it takes too much of a toll on me. And then
Right.
this Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Gracie jiu-jitsu, and I was absolutely Horian Gracie and and his sons were doing this, and it was just I just thought it was beautiful, and I loved the way they were moving. I I said this is something I can. It just felt like the right thing.
Right.
So I contacted a friend down in the LA area who I knew was doing this type of jujitsu, and he suggested the Machado brothers.
Ah, wow. Okay.
So I went down to LA to Redondo Beach and I started with the Machado brothers. I used to go for a week at a time. I'd rent a hotel room and I would get private lessons with Higgins, Machado, and all the Machado brothers actually. And then I would take 2 group classes a day. And I was in my mid 30s. I was dying. I think they were training for a competition, and
Right.
like they would teach these classes that was so, you know, energetic. And I mean, they tired you out just with the exercises alone, and then the drills, and then the resistance drills, and the you get into positions and having to fight your way out of the positions. And then they just turned us loose on each other. And it was round robin. We had to fight everybody in the room. I was a total beginner. Holy roar. And between that, we had to do push-ups and sit-ups. We weren't even allowed to rest. I couldn't believe it. And so I would do this for a week, come back and work with my students as much as I could until finally there was a jiu-jitsu school that opened about 45 minutes from my house. A Brazilian guy, Giuliano Prago, came down, and I started formal lessons with him.
Wow.
So yeah, that was it. And so I loved it. And I studied, practiced it ever since.
Wow. Did you compete at all did you do any
I didn't.
competitions?
I didn't. I sustained a fairly serious neck injury early on.
Okay.
And, there was pressure on my spinal cord, and it was questionable whether I'd be able to take any more ukemi or wrestle or,
Uh,
you know, having people yank on my neck and toss
right.
me. So I didn't compete. And I'm really an Aikido guy who does jujitsu.
Right.
You know, I
Right.
always have done it from the perspective of Aikido and being an Aikido instructor. So I never did compete, but
Okay.
I sparred a lot in class with folks, and that was for me. That satisfied uh, my curiosity about uh, the adversity of the whole thing. You
Right.
know, because especially back in those days, people were very serious in terms of the sparring, and it was very they were very emotional. They really wanted to win, and I suppose nothing's changed really that much. But yeah, but no, I never did compete.
Wow. So at some and you I mean I love that keep going back to Aikido because obviously I'm an Aikido guy by heart.
Sure,
I've been
sure,
doing
yeah, yeah.
jujitsu for a few years now. My next question is tying those two together. Because I've watched and love, I still go back to the Aikido extensions. At
Oh,
what point in your training did you start to see connections between the two? Did that happen early on, or did you have an epiphany moment where you were teaching and you're like, oh, my Aikido and my jujitsu have places where they can play together?
not for a very long time. It
Okay.
must have taken about 20 years.
Okay.
Always I knew the principles of Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu. If you could follow the principles, uh, it would be good for you whether you did Jiu-Jitsu or Aikido. For example, not gripping so hard and being able to basically have a more fluid game and
Right.
be able to use pressure and yield to your partner's pressure and fill the gaps when they left the openings. I mean, that coincides with Aikido principles as well.
Right.
Rather than grabbing somebody and trying to pull them around for iriminage, you guide their energy more. You get to the center of things and you rotate. So basic principles like that were similar. But the whole feeling of the thing was different. You're trying to beat the other guy in jujitsu.
Yeah, there's that.
And in Aikido, it doesn't, it's not, that's not what you're trying to do. It's see, jujitsu, and I always tell my sons this because they're professional jujitsu guys now, and their job is to sell jujitsu. And I tell them that it's an easier job to sell jujitsu to the American public than
Mm,
it is Aikido, because jujitsu is, there's there's a winner and a loser, and it always works like that. Of course, they say there's winners and then there's learners.
mm,
You know, you're either winning or you're learning. I mean, that's a very positive way
right.
to to go about it, but still it's competitive. And the nice thing about competition is it basically it wipes out a lot of the bullshit, you know.
Thank you for saying. I've discovered it on my own in the most honest way. Like I agree with you in my,
And yeah,
experience.
and with Aikido, it's you find a lot of people that are hiding behind the principle of non-competition to float their own agenda,
Right.
their own perception of themselves, which may not have much to do with reality.
Mm,
So, so a person who does Aikido has to have, if they're going to truly do a practice that is valuable and has some relationship to reality, uh, they're going to have to keep themselves in check and make sure that they're in their own integrity
mm.
when they're practicing. And because it's you to really, you have no choice in jujitsu but to deal with the confrontation and the encounter. But in Aikido, you can avoid it. So, but it's up to the person to include it in their practice, even if there's a bit of cooperation going on.
Right.
Uh, it's the most, it's almost like it's Aikido is based on a feeling that's really hard to put into words. Yeah, I'm at a
That's a
loss.
tough one. No, that's a tough one. And just to piggyback off of that a little bit, I find, and obviously, if I've not had the experience you have in Aikido, but I often find that when some of my students or folks ask me about my interest in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and what the differences are, and for me, I didn't play competitive sports growing up. So coming
Yeah,
to Jiu Jitsu in my 30s, like I was looking for the competition aspect. I was
yeah,
looking to understand, and obviously I'm still learning. Like I know there's a pecking order. I know there's a sort of the ego is checked every class. There's
right.
always someone bigger, stronger, faster. The competition aspect let me understand, like, hey, I'm not invincible. There's weight classes. There's a reason we learn these things. But it also kind of got some of the negative things that came out in Aikido from things like you said, like some of the egos and some of the bad eggs and folks who haven't had or found a way to get past the sort of agenda or nonsense that we all go through in our training. And I think that having that experience and being in an environment that was just holistically more encouraging, having
Yeah,
my instructors train with me like that was phenomenal. Because in my time with Donovan Wade Sensei, it was like all positive. There were always some bobo heads who came in that were difficult, But by
Yeah.
then in my training, I could hold my own. So I wasn't really
Yeah.
worried about people being
Yeah.
difficult. Plus, I had the ukemi behind me. So I was like, hey, I'll just take ukemi all day and you're going to get tired and whatever. And hopefully we'll be friends and can have something to eat after this. But we all know, right? It's hard to conquer oneself.
Right.
And I do like how you explained because I was reading a little bit about O Sensei, that sort of mindset. If I think I read correctly, if you could speak to this, how I think what I read, and I'll try to find this so we can talk later. How anyone who wanted to start Aikido would have to be in the right frame of mind. They'd have to be able to accept the fact that you are losing, but you're giving yourself to this training. Like it's your mind, body, and soul that goes into it, right? It's not about winning. Like the winning aspect is actually just coming and accepting that, there is someone bigger, stronger, faster, right? But you're thinking about the whole big picture and trying to be a better person in general, not just learn to arm lock and smash everybody, right? There's like a whole
Right.
philosophy and lifestyle that's accompanied with that training that I don't think everybody can tap into.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. And, when I really think about it, I think the way that Aikido has been presented,
Right.
especially after O Sensei's time, or maybe even during a little bit, I think that Kisho Maru Ueshiba Sensei, son of the founder, was really responsible for making Aikido the type of thing that was palatable to most people. So
Mm,
left Aikido as a martial art that is as an open slate. You can come into it and take from it what you would like.
mm,
And it gives, by its very nature, it gives a person the opportunity to emphasize what is it that they would like to get out of Aikido.
right.
If it's martial effectiveness, then each person has to adjust their training for that. And what I've done over the years is I've introduced slowly more and more practical or realistic, even what I call light sparring. I do that with the Shodans for their Shodan test.
Oh,
Actually put on gloves. And the ukes come in and they throw jabs, right crosses, and wild punches. They throw low kicks. I give them a few things that they're allowed to do at random. And what I've gotten from the Gracies and from doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and with the Machados as well is how to close the distance.
right.
And then close the distance and then do a classical Aikido technique as
Right.
well. I've worked with security people and who would tell me, listen, if you're going to teach me about things on the ground, we're not interested for our group. We're bodyguards here, and we have to be on our feet at all times. And we want to learn Aikido, and we don't want to learn anything else. And I would teach them Aikido, but then I would say to them, you might find yourself on the ground, even though it's not in your job description, so
Right.
it'd be a good idea to know a few things. So, and then you have people who come in. If I followed being an accountant, let's say I graduated and I was an accountant, and I came into the dojo and we just did classical Aikido all the time, where you pretty much know everything that's going to happen. You demonstrate a technique and you have a compliant uke, and you're always doing that. I get such a flush through my system, and it feels great to practice that way. It's a artistic expression, and it feels like it's a great way to relate to people. And it's not really dance, and yet there is an element of artistic expression to it that satisfies me on a really deep level. I would probably be happy with that if I was just a professional coming in for that and I didn't have any particular concerns about self-defense. And I still don't really think about self-defense that often, believe it or not, even though I tend to emphasize it more than other Aikido instructors do.
Right.
But the reason I do is because the sign on the building says it's a martial art. So when they come in, I feel that by the time they're Shodan, they should know how to, on the fly, protect themselves against your average thug. you're not going to be a mixed martial artist from going through my Aikido program. And I'm really clear with people about that. Don't think that you're going to do Tai no Henko and all of a sudden you practice that for 15 years. Tai no Henko, and then you're going to go in to a mixed martial arts situation and be able to take care of the guy just by concentrating your mind. You
Right.
need training. And I'm not saying you can't use Aikido for that, but you would have to train that way. You know, a lot of people, they don't realize what goes in for to a mixed martial artist. You know,
Exactly.
people tend to pick on Aikido, but if all you know is sport jujitsu, which is what's taught in 99% of the schools right now,
Yeah.
and you go into a mixed martial arts situation, you're going to get killed.
Oh yeah, the concept of just pulling guard itself, being on bottom, you'd
Yeah,
have to be a
right.
special
You
kind of
know,
person to pull that off. I mean, we see it
or
in UFC, but it's very rare.
yeah, right. But back in when it was in the UFC, see, when the Gracies came up with it, they were into what they used to call vale tudo,
Oh,
or
that's right.
or
Right.
anything goes. And they spent a lot of time dealing with strikers.
Right. And they were fighting anyway, because I think it was just the
Right.
Street Fighters and the Lucha Libre folks they were fighting with also, right? Like anybody who had shoot
Yeah,
wrestling, I guess
yeah,
Shuto
yeah,
wrestling was around back then. Shoot
absolutely.
boxing,
So
right?
I appreciated them because they, you know, but since that time, you get the whole world thinking about practicality and the most practical way to defeat another person.
Right.
And all of a sudden now the kickboxers have gotten wise to the jujitsu guys.
Mm.
And they know how to hit a standard, a regular, a grappler. You know, the grappler has to know what the kickboxer knows.
Right.
The shoot wrestler, all this, the judo person. You need, if you're going to be a mixed martial artist, you have to have a judo trainer. You need a jujitsu instructor. You need a Muay Thai guy. You need a Western boxer. You need a strength trainer. You need somebody to handle your nutrition. And you need to work at it 8 hours a day. And at very high risks. You are like a gladiator, a modern day gladiator going into the ring. Most people are not going to do that. So, but if you look at any one martial art, whether it's karate or judo or aikido or kung fu, if that's all you do, you'll have similar limitations when it comes to a mixed martial arts situation. So what I do at Tenzan Aikido here at the dojo is I present people with this is where I think Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu overlap and how Jiu-Jitsu really helps Aikido, at least Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is that the method of closing the distance on an attack where you don't know what's coming, and then coming up with something, either Jiu-Jitsu or some classical Aikido technique, is a wonderful way to practice because it introduces a level of spontaneity that you don't usually get in the classical Aikido training.
Right.
Once in a while, I'll run into somebody who has only trained classically in Aikido. And for some reason, they just have an ability to connect all the dots and make it truly martially effective in all kinds of situations. But those folks are rare.
Donovan Wade Sensei. I used to speak to him about this, like actually in one of our last conversations before he passed, we talked about this very extensively, that same thing. And I'd asked him, I'm like, you know, like yourself, just very purist in Aikido. I think he did judo as a kid, but just him explaining similarly to how you did, just that, you know, Aikido is a very specific thing. And just kind of doing a speed run on what he said in my interpretation, that you'd have to be a special kind of individual who spent time studying and paying attention to your training in that way to make it effective. Although his Aikido was effective, there were blind sides and gaps, which he was honest about. He didn't say my Aikido is the fast button we all want these days, right? That one click hack to ending a fight or something, right? Because that's not the point. But there were some effective things there, but someone would have to obviously supplement that training and have the right mindset to actually be able to do that. But then there were people that might be able to put those dots together, maybe based upon their temperament or maybe training from before, just maybe their background, right? Some people just
Yeah,
are a little more inclined to think and move that way. So
absolutely. Absolutely. So really, ultimately, what attracts me to Aikido is the whole idea of tempering yourself and refining yourself through a martial discipline. Even really strong classical training and with the ukemi and with the way that we don't divide up according to uh, weight or gender. Uh,
age, right? 'Cause I know in
age,
my brackets, I just did this.
yeah.
I'm in like masters, like 30 plus, purple belt, 145. Like, I mean, I get it. And then there's absolute divisions, which where like, God bless you, anyone who does that. I'm too old for that.
Yeah. So
Right.
anyway, but the personal refinement, I think, is unusually strong in Aikido.
Mm.
And, you know, one has to be careful with these kinds of comments because I can't say that people who do Aikido are any nicer than people who do Jiu-Jitsu, for
Right.
example.
Right.
Um, but Terry Dobson once said something to me, and he said that the people who find Aikido are those who need it the most.
Mm.
So um, you never know where you have to look at where a person starts and where they end up and measure the distance between the two places. Where if you compare people to each other, where a person ends up might not be too impressive.
Right.
But if you take a look at a person who comes in a wheelchair, and then by the end of a few years, they're able to stand up and do Tai no Anko, they've,
Mm.
they've really come a long distance. Or if somebody is working on emotional issues or has, you know, social things going on, and they are able to overcome it through their practice, and they find a sense of refinement and a sense, a balancing aspect to their Aikido training that brings them in touch with just a general flow of things. And I think that was the wordless thing that I was looking for earlier in our talk.
Right. I understand.
And I think that's really where it's at with Aikido. It's also a very strong, it's a social art as
Right.
well.
Right.
It really does bring people together in a way that I don't know of anything else that does it quite like this.
Interesting. I see your point. I've spoken to some people about this recently. And I think that's something to be said about again something I believe. Don't quote me on this. Some things I was reading about Sensei and the idea of bringing people together, like creating a peaceful world where people can unite non-confrontationally and find commonalities and just be at peace, even if it's while they're doing these things, and change their personality and find purity in their mind, body, and spirit, right? And I think in the biggest way I've seen that in Aikido. I mean, I've met plenty of friends and plenty of people I still interact with in Aikido. I see it in other spaces, but it's very different, the types of personalities. I think they're just a little
Yeah,
different. And I think there's something for everyone, which is why obviously there's so many things there. But I
that's
think in my own way I see that connection with Aikido and that community, those community aspects, I think.
absolutely, absolutely. And well, the thing with the I think that Americans and non-Japanese have taken this concept of peace that they attribute to O Sensei's philosophy, and they have sort of projected a Gandhi or a Martin Luther King sort of pacifist sort of peace philosophy.
Right.
But what I understand is that O Sensei felt that what true peace was that you were in alignment with the movement of the universe
Gotcha.
through your practice. But in the universe, there's hurricanes, tornadoes, it's lightning that strikes. And the idea is that you bring things into balance. So from what I understand, is that the concept of peace for him, he was not really a pacifist kind of a guy. He felt that it was important to be martially strong. And at the same time, he felt that you had to be a correct mind. And, you have to be careful how you even listen to his words. And I mean, he hung out with a lot of right-wing people way back in the day in Japan, very hardcore folks. So you have to sort of take the essence of what he's trying to say, be in harmony with the movement of the universe. I think that is a true thing. And sometimes it's too peaceful. Sometimes do an irimi in a situation rather than a tenkan.
Right.
And, we are using swords and joes in Aikido. And I know Sensei said swing the sword of fusion, but I still think that a strong cut is a strong cut, and there's a reason for this. So it's not that simplistic a concept to be peaceful, but it comes from strength and the harmony that I think O-sensei was talking about was harmonious interaction with nature. So,
Yeah, there's a lot. There's definitely a lot in that, and I appreciate that interpretation as well. And like, I've been starting to read a little more about those things, and especially now as I'm deeper into training. I'm coaching now a little bit in jujitsu, like teens and kids. Like, the philosophy is a lot. Like, I'm like yearning, and like I'm gravitating more towards understanding what did people mean? What were they looking for? And then instructors like yourself, like what were the motivations and like what knowledge you have to share. And I'm going to segue into the next question. What advice do you have for Aikido students who are curious about following a similar path as yours in their own way? So maybe becoming a professional instructor or starting a dojo. Like, what advice do you have for someone who's looking to go that path in Aikido?
Well, first, you have to be well trained. And that means you have to find a teacher that inspires you and train with that teacher for a good length of time. And until you have captured the essence of what the teacher has to offer. And so that's first. And then get lots of experience with many different things. Different teachers see everything. Take a look at Yoshinkan Aikido. Take a look at Tomiki Aikido. Look at the Ki Society. Taste it a little bit. Go in and work with them somewhat.
Different looks. Yeah, that's something I encourage my students to do.
And see, does it grab you? Do the Aikikai. Maybe go to Iwama, or practice with somebody who is based in Iwama style Aikido. Take a seminar, weekend seminar with the people that you're curious about who are very different than you and from your instructor. And and study on, you're looking at about being a yondan before really going out and starting your own Aikido, your dojo. Yondan is like the first rank as a full instructor. And you're always be primarily a student, first a student, and secondarily a teacher. And stay in touch with your passion. And when you find that you're getting bored with something, don't pressure yourself or scold yourself for being bored. You have to look into boredom because there's a lot of information in that. And you have to find out, why am I bored? Is there something I'm missing the essence here, or I'm not really getting to it in my practice? What is it that I am not looking at? What is it that I'm not in touch with? And when you start doing superfluous things, that's when boredom comes in. It
Hmm.
don't really matter, or you're just going through the motions.
Right,
And then
right,
you start really working it on that level of knowing what your own personal, everybody's got something that's deep that they're working on. It can be a physical thing, like a place where you're holding tension, or
right,
where there's a postural thing, or where maybe you're having a hard time getting your energy to move, or coming from a powerful core, or being sensitive, you know, and to stay in touch with whatever your sore point is, that place. And you can approach it not always right. When things are acute, sometimes you shouldn't be too direct, but you can work around it until, and this is all energetic kind of work that you can be doing while you practice. That's why it's a meditation,
right.
the Aikido. If you can stay with yourself energetically and also tune in with your partner, it's marvelous, marvelous practice. So, and you bring that to the dojo, and if you're teaching, if you keep all that right at your fingertips, so that every time you come into class, it's another opportunity to really get into it. Because maybe you have a whole group of beginners there and you say to yourself, well, how am I going to get to what I need to work? Oh, you can.
There's so much there in teaching, and my
I know.
limited
Oh,
experience.
yeah, there's so much. And then when you can observe somebody else's process and all their fears and their strong points and all this, it's just, and then you can sort of see an energetic aura around the person, and you know what they can become.
Right,
They may not see it, but you can after a while as you become an experienced teacher. And they may be able to take the art to places that you can't. That is one thing that I think is often left out, is that we become coaches after a while.
hmm,
It's not only about us. I think this whole idea that we're going to become these old guys that are going to be able to whip all the young fighters and everything because of our internal whatever. You know, I, I don't think it happens like that. I mean, if you take a fellow like Cus D'Amato, who was
hmm.
Mike Tyson's trainer, he taught him everything.
Yeah,
He taught incredible stuff. He wasn't going to get in a ring with him, right?
right.
Angelo Dundee and Muhammad Ali. I mean, sometimes a coach can see what an athlete is capable of, even though the coach may not have it in himself to go there. But they can see that their student can go there. And if they're really talented, they can bring that out.
Hmm.
That's, I think, the responsibility of a teacher. And that's where the teacher needs to be humble and to understand it's not about making a bunch of copies of themselves,
Right.
but you encourage each person to fulfill their own mission in Aikido, and to become really to integrate the art into their own lives. That's critical. And I think that's the mark of a good teacher, and something that we should all aspire to.
That is phenomenal. Yeah, and I often wonder, and like now, I mean, part of doing this podcast is getting exposures from instructors and professionals in different disciplines, just to kind of like look for those different looks. Like I dojo hop. I do it in jujitsu as well. I often visit different gyms, like to just get different instruction, different body types, and not just be like in my own little bubble. And aside from competitions, like I like to go to open mats. I go to different classes just to feel that. And for Aikido, I'm trying to encourage my students to do a similar thing, so that they can get those different looks as well.
For sure. You know, uh, with my Aikido students, they ask me about going around the different teachers and everything. And I go, it's like going out to dinner.
Mm.
You can go out to dinner and try different cuisines, but the dojo is like mother's home cooking. So you always come back to the dojo. And that's your main, that sustains you. But you go out and you try different things. And and it adds to you, and it gives you an outlook on things as well.
Right.
So there's a balance.
That's awesome. Wow, this is phenomenal. I have obviously more questions for you. This one's related to advice for anyone who's starting martial arts today. And I know there's different disciplines, everybody has their own sort of interpretation. And for people who say, hey, I want to do a martial art, I don't really know what I want. Is there something that or advice you can give to them with your background to just help them kind of hone in what might be the best thing for them? Because I know there's something for everyone. And I feel like some people just land where they have exposure. So do you have any advice on that? Like, hey, I'm new, I want to do a martial art, but I don't know where to start. There's so many. I don't have the support system or feedback to know which way to go.
Well, I would say check out a lot of schools, and something will grab you. And you'll go in and you'll see the instructors and you'll see the students and you'll see them relating to each other. You'll see the art form. And something will inspire you and it will grab you if you're in the right place.
Right.
Sometimes it's you get frightened when you see something that you really need to do. And
Mm,
in that, you have to look at, because there's a difference between when something makes your hair stand on the back of your neck and when something is just kind of frightening in a very wholesome kind of a way. It touches on something that you need. It can be scary.
right.
You have to find the place where it just you feel at home.
Right. Right.
The, you basically look at the person and you get the teacher specifically, and you go, I think I can trust them with at least an hour of my time. And see if you can. In our dojo, we let people. We have an introductory offer where they can come in and they get a half-hour private lesson, and then they get
Oh, wow.
one group class.
Oh, that's really cool. That's a,
And they get the half-hour private first, and then they get the group class, and we charge them a nominal fee. And I always feel that people should pay something. There has to be an exchange in energy, because it's so hard to work with new people in the beginning. It demands so much attention.
right.
So, so I suggest that a new person go into a bunch of places and see. And you might go on the first time into a place and you see it and you go, gee, this is it for me. You might
Right.
know right there. So there's no harm in doing that and going from place to place and see if it satisfies. You have to be clear. Well, I couldn't tell you exactly why I started Aikido. I could say I have a hunch it's this or it's that, or it's the other
Right.
thing. But I just simply fell in love with it,
Right. Same.
and yeah. So that's what I would say. You let your that sense of connection be your guide, and don't be afraid to go around and check things out.
Awesome. Next one for you. So obviously you've been at martial arts for a significant amount of time. Could you explain some of the, I guess, benefits you got from training? I know obviously there's some lifestyle changes, maybe some health and fitness benefits. Like, what really resonated with you and sort of like helped develop your character? And what do you think really did the most for you in all of your training?
Well, I believe that Aikido and all the training that I have done, it's a constant, uh, uh, basically, you're constantly on the road to knowing yourself. And and there's a lot to know, really, with all of us, and to really have an understanding of our essence. It's what meditation is, and ultimately, I think that's what I've gotten from the martial arts, and specifically from Aikido. Um, as I get older, my ability to concentrate is getting better. And it shouldn't be that way, but I believe it is. But I think that maybe from a physical view standpoint, when I first started Aikido as a 12-year-old, I had the capacity to uh, to concentrate at a high level, but I had very little discipline or inspiration. And over the years, probably my physical ability to concentrate probably is going down. Now I'm a 66-year-old man.
God bless
And
you.
my
66. Wow.
ability to concentrate is going up. So I think that my actual ability to concentrate is better now than it's ever been,
Mm,
even though the physical capacity to do that is probably less. I'm just using more of what I have.
right.
And I think that that has happened through the martial arts. And for me, it's been a lifelong a chance to do artistic expression for me, and a way to express myself and to interact with other people. And also a big part of Aikido as well is that I've developed lifetime friends, that people that I knew when I was 12 years old. I have so many of them that are still alive. And it's just an amazing connection to a wonderful community. It's been a legacy that to an incredible martial discipline. And it's given me a passion. I feel bad for folks who don't know what they want to do with themselves, or they feel lonely, or whatever it might be, or they get bored so easily, and they just lack a sense of passion and purpose in their lives. And I've always felt with my martial arts training, and specifically Aikido, that I've always had uh, a purpose to the day,
Mm,
and always working on something.
right.
And not always with good results. You take the good and the bad, but it's always real. Well, as clear as it can be. So that's what I would say.
Wow. And it must be something also to it to live your, because I think most people don't have the chance in their lifetime to pursue their passion full time as a career. And you were able to do that with your martial arts, your Aikido, obviously, and also pursue other disciplines in your training. So I think that's phenomenal. I mean, everyone doesn't see that, like pursuing their passions in that way. I think we get caught in the bleep blarp 9 to 5 thing. Like, I mean, I'm in the 9 to 5 world as well, but I appreciate
What
having
do
the
you
martial
do?
arts. I'm in
What?
IT.
Oh,
I'm
I
in
see.
IT. Yeah, and I'm an IT guy. So like I'm computering 9 to 5, and then I have the martial arts after. But that's always been a big part of me. So as
Yeah.
everyone else, I think the hardest time was we talked about this before we got jumped on the podcast about sort of the COVID-19 times when everybody was on lockdown. Like the martial arts never left me. I just realized that I wanted to do so much more of it. Like I did a year of jujitsu and everything got cut off. And I was in that transition period where I was at the beginning of like what I called my exploration and kind of finding my way. And, you know, so when I got back to it, I like, it was nothing but jujitsu then. And then I started to appreciate my Aikido more now, and even more so now that, Donovan Wade Sensei is gone. I have this
Yeah.
video project where I'm like, I filmed a lot of things with him, and I'm like able to look and study and like appreciate all that time I had and shared. I'm glad I took that path, kind of following him after the dojo split. So
Yeah, I've seen
it's
some
just,
footage of you taking ukemi for him, and it
oh,
was really
awesome.
very impressive.
Thank you,
His
Sensei. That means a
technique
lot.
and you absorbing it. So it's
Thank you.
really nice. Nice.
Yeah, thank you. That means a lot. Well, I'm gonna get on the mat with you someday. We're gonna figure that out. I know
So,
you get here, and I have no problem getting on a plane. So
yeah.
Um, so wow, this is great. I think this is awesome. I think I have one more question for you, and I know we're
Sure.
getting pretty close to time. We talked about advice for anyone who's training, and I think you talked about this a little bit. I just wanted to maybe get a few more tidbits from you on how martial arts affect you in everyday life, right? Because for me, I know Aikido folks use this a lot, like, oh, step off the line. And I use the Aikido frame of mind, and I resolve conflict at work. And, I have irate people that I deal with. And I just have that way of avoiding conflict and resolving situations peacefully. Can you speak a little bit about that and how you've kind of navigated stressful situations and use your martial arts and Aikido background to kind of keep things level?
Absolutely. Um, let's talk about road rage.
Okay, I'm familiar, very familiar.
You know, I can, I think I made, I was out driving and I don't know, I think I cut a guy off, not realizing it, having a lapse in my attention.
Right.
And the guy, flipped me the bird and got out of the car, and he was ready, you know. And, I rolled down my window and he said, he said a whole bunch of things
Yeah,
that
yeah,
were pretty rough.
yeah. Okay.
And I first, it seemed like it was a nanosecond. I said to myself, is anything that he's saying essentially true? And I made a
Mm,
mistake and I cut him off by accident. I said, I'm really sorry about that. I did cut you off and I didn't do it on purpose, but I realized that that's what happened and I'm really sorry. And that just diffused him completely. And he said, "Oh, because he's,
ready, just be ready to
he's,
rot. Yeah.
and then I'm also thinking too, it's amazing how just in a nanosecond you can think. And I think the answer to your question is that in Aikido for daily life is that you need to keep your ego in check
Mm,
and know if you're clear. Because when you get angry, you're not clear. When you're in fear, you're not clear. You have to do something with the fear or with the anger to transform it into something that's effective energy. Um, when I see when I see a guy like the guy who was with the road rage, what goes through my mind also is he might have a gun, he might have a knife,
right.
edged weapons. It's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
He might be. I try to treat everybody as if they're Mike Tyson, Hickson, Gracie, and Bruce Lee, all wrapped up into one person.
One super ninja person that's in front of you ready to rock, right?
Yeah. How respectful would I be?
Hey, right.
That's how I treat everybody. Because if you
Mm,
don't treat everybody like that, you're being a bully. You're willing to fight some guy you think is, weak, but you're not willing to fight somebody you think is strong. It has to come from what's right.
right.
If I see somebody being harmed or somebody in my family and I have to step up, then I will. And it'll be everything. They'll have a man in front of them who will fight to the death. And that would be clear because the cause is right,
Right.
you know? So it's that type of meditation that's the state to be in when you can recognize, oh, I'm having a reaction here. Or, oh, this guy is flipping me the bird and hollering, why don't I just get out? I'm wrong, but get out of the car anyway and risk life and limb and to beat the shit out of this guy, right? Or have him clean my clock. So it's a matter of being really in the present moment and to check your own. That's what meditation is, to reflect on your own emotional, psychological process. Are you clear? It sounds really simple, but as a person who spent much of my time being unclear, it's a perennial problem that keeps appearing again and again and again. And I would say that over the years, I can pull myself out of it much
Mm,
better now. So, and this can happen in your relationship with your wife. It can happen at work as well. When when you get into arguments with people or my wife gives me a list of things to do and I get really pissed, but then I have to take it apart. I have to take it apart and go, are these things necessary to be done? And
right.
then should be doing these things.
Right.
And then if I get clear about it, I take the emotionality out of it. And whatever my crazy ego thinks, whatever I've been conditioned to think she should be doing and what I should be doing.
Right.
And then come to a clear place and remember who she is to me.
Right.
That's really important. And we remember who people are to us,
Right.
who our children are to us, who our spouses are to us, who our friends are to us, who our practice partners are to us. That way we go back and forth from the street and from the neighborhood into the dojo and back out again. And it's always practice. You know, so that's how I feel that Aikido can help in daily life. And that's what it's been for me time after time, year after year.
That is phenomenal, Sensei. Wow. And I know we're coming up on time. So I just want to say, and obviously we'll connect and hopefully continue some more conversations. For people who want to find you, I know it's Tenzan Aikido. Are you on social media at all? Are we can
I
we share
mean,
some of those things? You're not really on
I'm
there.
on everything. I know I'm on Facebook, and I know Facebook's for the old people now.
I'm on Facebook. We're good. I got you.
I'm on the other social media too.
Right.
You know, my students and people who work for me help with that.
Awesome.
You know,
Okay.
and so I'm easy. If you Google Tenzan Aikido, you will find all the information you need to know about the dojo, about me in particular, and about my students too, and the other instructors here at the dojo.
Awesome.
Our chief instructor is Melissa Fisher. I've given over the position of chief instructor to her, and I operate as the director of the dojo.
Awesome.
So you know, she's been working with me for over 20 years. You know, and it's I'm still day-to-day operations doing a lot and a lot of the teaching, but she has taken on a tremendous load and is
Right.
an instructor in her own right, and
Awesome.
amazing. You can find information there too. So
Awesome.
it's yeah, the tenzanaikido.com is
Okay.
the
And I'll gather those things and I'll share those in the post. And Sensei, thank you so much. Like I said, we're gonna continue our conversations, but this was phenomenal. Like I said, you've been an inspiration and you still are. Folks, there's also the Aikido extensions that are available that was done with I think the Aikido Journal and Josh Gold.
that's right.
And you can find him on I'll share the socials and those things so you can find him. He is on a seminar circuit still. I know you were at summer camp, and I missed you this year, USCF summer camp. So hopefully we'll find a way to cross paths soon.
Yeah, hopefully you'll be in Montreal or or Florida.
Most likely Florida. I don't know if we can make Montreal, but we'll probably catch you in Florida.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Sal, you're a beautiful guy, and it's
Sensei.
been a pleasure to talk with you. And
Likewise.
really appreciate your interest in my study of Aikido and our dojo. And I appreciate this wonderful opportunity
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And you're doing some good work.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I
All
look
right,
forward to training with you as well.
very soon. All right,
Yeah.
folks. Thanks for
Okay.
tapping in. We'll catch you on the next podcast.
Thank you.